Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It's remaining fairly dry and cool in the south, remaining cool but more unsettled further northwards, with a lot of showers starting to push in, some weak weather fronts and some wintry showers as well, as the high pressure that we've had sat over us for the last week or so does start to drift southwards, still holding on in around England and Wales. For many areas further northwards, mostly Scotland, it is going to be very unsettled coming up this next few days, especially into next week as well. We'll then have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, GM, ECMWF and ensembles, where it is looking generally unsettled as we head into February, especially further northwards, but not exclusively. Could drift further southwards at times, but high pressure looks like it could try and build in the south. And we are still seeing some anomalous runs, like the GFS operational that we did allude to yesterday, that does show something quite interesting as we head into February, potentially trying to build that high pressure up from the south further northwards, producing northerly or easterly winds. Now that sort of scenario does not have a lot of support at this stage, but we are seeing it still from the GFS operational runs and even from the GM and the ECMWF. They both attempt to ridge high pressure further northwards, so there definitely is something there perhaps into early February, and we'll decipher how much weight we put into that at this stage. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So if we do start on the live radar, you can see it is a generally very dry day. Under the higher pressure though, we do have quite a lot of cloud actually trapped in many areas, and as you can see a bit of a weather front pushing into the north and the west, drifting in as well. So yeah, not a great day out there, feeling pretty chilly. The upper air temperatures are average to slightly below average for the time of year, especially further southwards. So it is chilly, it is quite cloudy, but it isn't too bad out there. At least it is widely pretty dry, but the north will be turning more unsettled over the coming days. Now if you put on the temperatures as of around 3 p.m. this afternoon, you can see those temperatures are not great. A lot of mixing between sort of yellows and blues around that sort of mid to high single figures, and again cold over higher ground. So yeah, not too bad out there as I said, but generally cool around average, if not slightly below average for this time of year. But as I said, the most important thing is it is still pretty dry after a very wet end to 2022 and start to 2023. At least we are getting some dry weather now to dry out the ground, lower those river levels, and of course it's a bit more pleasant out there, even though it is chilly. Dry conditions are definitely always better. If you look at the UKV now and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the course of the next 5 days, you can see this afternoon how there is quite a bit of cloud, and it should clear later this afternoon. As I'm recording this, it's showing quite a lot of that cloud further south and east was breaking apart, but as I look out the window, hasn't broken apart yet. So perhaps slightly more delayed in reality than this is showing, but it should generally clear away through this evening before we see a bit of a weather front heading into northwest Scotland, drifting south and eastwards but dissipating as it does. Into Saturday afternoon, another relatively cloudy day for many, maybe some sunshine through northern areas, through northern England and southern Scotland, and maybe the far south and southeast, but where we have that remnants of the weather front through the Midlands and northern England and parts of Wales, it could still be quite gloomy, and bits and bobs of a bit of precipitation there. And as we head through Saturday night into Sunday, a very cloudy night there, a few areas of drizzle appearing through England and Wales and for parts of Scotland. And into Sunday we see a weather front spreading in, giving fresher air for Scotland, so some more sunshine, but showers and some precipitation moving in there, and a probably cooler feel as well. Through Sunday, you can see that weather front does spread southwards, again does dissipate as it spreads into England and Wales, and then a few wintry showers and general just showery weather for Scotland, turning much cooler, but as I said, more unsettled. As we head through Monday evening into Tuesday, you see that weather front does spread southwards and eastwards, giving more precipitation in places, but again dissipating through the south and just giving another showery day in the far north. And you can see it sort of epitomised there right at the end of this run, where we've got loads of showers through Scotland and northern England and Northern Ireland. Further southwards, clearer skies and drier, and of course some of those showers falling wintry with a northwesterly breeze coming round the higher pressure. So generally cool air mass, but nothing ridiculously cold. Again, you can look at the upper air temperatures around that -5 region. Again, it is flip-flopping up and down, so things will be changing, but there will be cooler air masses at times. It will mean there will be overnight frosts and generally cooler conditions. Now, if you do put on the 2 metre temperatures, again, you can see this afternoon those temperatures around average, maybe slightly below average for this time of year, 5 to 7 degrees cooler over the higher ground. Overnight tonight, you can see those temperatures dropping away to freezing, where you have clearer skies further southwards and eastwards, further northwards and westwards, with more cloud, and that weather front starting to arrive. Those temperatures are a little bit higher. And for Saturday, again, another average sort of day, 5 to 8 degrees widely. Again, nothing too cold, but nothing too mild. And then through Saturday into Sunday, again, an overnight frost in a few areas. We see clearer skies, but nothing too crazy. And then through Sunday afternoon, slightly milder, 7 to 10 degrees, with a briefly milder wedge of air pushing in there. For as we head into Monday, another cool front moves through. And again, Monday afternoon, sort of 6 to 8 degrees average for the time of year. And then into Tuesday as well. Again, nothing too crazy, maybe 8 to 10 degrees cooler in the north than in the south. So you can see it is showery, especially further northwards, generally drier in the south, and those temperatures will be hovering around average, slightly above and slightly below at times. Pretty typical for this time of year. So you can see nothing too much is going on over the next 5 days, turning slightly more unsettled further northwards, staying very dry further southwards as well, and again, nothing out of the ordinary. But if we do now have a look at the GFS and see what could be happening in the longer term, you'll be able to see there could be things brewing as we head into the start of February. Now you can see the high pressure over the top of us at the moment, and that's why we've got this north-south split, because the high pressure tries to hold on for the southern half, but the northern half getting influenced by lower pressure sat over Iceland. And that's why it's cooler and more showery into next week. But what happens into early February? The high pressure extends in. And as we thought we'd go very unsettled with all these purples out towards Greenland, they do try and push in, but this higher pressure system holds them at bay. And look what happens in the longer term. It holds on and actually tries to extend further northwards. The last few runs have had it extending towards Scandinavia, not quite coming off here, more of a southeasterly breeze here, so a cool continental flow. But right into the longer range, the high pressure goes towards Greenland, and we are plunged into a northerly wind. Very cold air coming out of the North Pole. The upper air temperatures down to -10 at 850 HPA, and you can see it well emphasised on the potential equivalent temperature. Dark pinks and purples plunging from Greenland, Svalbard, and generally the North Pole. Very cold air mass pushing in there. Again, it's 384 hours, but it's that general trend from around day 7 to day 10 of that higher pressure trying to reach further northwards. And again, most of the ensemble members don't have it really going anywhere. They keep the generally westerly flow or keep the high pressure, at least for London, over the top of us in the south, as we'll see in the ensembles. But this is a potential scenario, and it just is throwing a bit of a spanner in the works there, as we were pretty sure a few days ago that mild, or maybe mild, but generally westerly sort of influence, whether it's northwesterly or southwesterly, we were pretty sure that's the wind direction we'd be seeing. But this latest development with this high pressure trying to reach further northwards into early February definitely perhaps mean there could be some other scenarios on the table. I would say I'm definitely on the side of it being more westerly, at least in the north, maybe high pressure dominating in the south, but this situation does have some legs and it could come off. And as we see on the GEM and the Eastern WF in a minute, they both do show something similar in terms of reaching further northwards, but don't pull anything too drastic off yet. So if we do now have a look at that GEM run, again the higher pressure is building in at the moment, sort of flip-flopping between cooler and milder air masses, and low pressure, high pressure, low pressure dominating further northwards, higher pressure dominating further southwards. As we head towards day 10 though, look, the high pressure reaches northwards and it tries to pull in an easterly wind. Again, it doesn't get far enough northwards to pull in anything bitterly cold, but it pulls in a continental flow, and you can see the -5 isotherm is about a couple hundred miles away and would be moving into the first full week of February, telling us colder, maybe a little bit wintry, nothing too drastic, but it's that hints, that sign of high pressure reaching northwards towards Scandinavia or Iceland that we're seeing once again from the GEM. Now, it won't play out like this, it will change, but it's the similarities at that day 7 to day 10 time frame from the GFS and the GEM, which is interesting, meaning that this could come off. And if it does come off sort of in between the two patterns, not going fully cold, but not staying mild and westerly, it could mean that high pressure just actually sits over the top of us, keeping us drier once again into early February, which is pretty decent, considering, as I said, the very wet first half of January we have had. Now, if you go to the ECWF, are we going to see anything similar? Now, we can do the high pressure building in at the moment, but low pressure pushing away further northwards and sort of a flat jet stream into early next week. You see the high pressure does ridge further northwards at day 10. It does develop towards Scandinavia, but everything's shifted a few hundred miles further eastwards, and we're definitely in the low pressure influence here. Big low pressure developing in the Atlantic, and those cold easterly winds are for Eastern Europe. Look at that, more blues towards Eastern, Southeastern Europe. The UK wedged in a milder air mass on the other side of the higher pressure block towards Scandinavia. So again, a similar sort of situation, similar sort of pressure build further northwards, but a different outcome just because of the orientation shift. But all three runs show this high pressure ridging northwards. Very interesting, and we'll have to see the whole array of scenarios that could come off in the coming days. Now, if you look at the ensembles, you'll be able to see it doesn't really reflect this all too much other than just producing a huge amount of scatter. Into the longer term, we're generally average, slightly above average, but I wouldn't put too much weight into that because we've got some very cold runs and we've got some very mild runs as well. And that GFS operational run, which was about to plunge us very cold, is well above average here just because that cold air hadn't spread southwards in time for the end of this ensemble chart. Now, you can see there is quite a big precipitation signal in the longer term, but it is actually decreasing. It was increasing quite a lot earlier this week, but the last day or so it's decreased a little bit, perhaps again on some members trending towards that higher pressure build over the top of us or to our north. Again, if we look at the mean sea level pressure, there are some very deep low pressure systems in the longer term. There are also equally some higher pressure systems, definitely towards the first sort of 5 to 7 days of February there. We expected it to go much more low pressure dominated. It was definitely in the north, but the south has definitely trended more towards higher pressure. The dew points are still nothing ridiculously cold, but they're not ridiculously mild. They're not sort of the average of them are not between 5 and 10 degrees, which you'd expect from a southwesterly wind with big milder sectors. Definitely a cooling trend again, perhaps that higher pressure building over the top of us. Again, if we look at the ECMWF ensemble members for the midnight run, you'll be able to see generally again around average over the course of the next few weeks, dipping below and above, and you can see in the longer range huge scatter, some very mild runs and some very cold runs, and decent precipitation but not huge amounts, again indicative of quite a few of these ensemble members building higher pressure in. Again, you look at the mean sea level pressure from those ensemble runs. Definitely a big split in the longer term. Some going very deep in low pressure, some going very high in terms of pressure. So again, big splits here. Some got that big westerly flow pushing in. Others have that high pressure building over the top of us, and even some building further northwards, potentially pushing in northerly or easterly winds. So definitely signs that something could be brewing into early February. So it's not going to be just a flat westerly fest at this stage. Definitely does look like the likely scenario, but it's not the only scenario. There are different options here that are perhaps growing in strength over the last 24 to 48 hours. Now, if you just finish by looking at Glasgow further northwards, which is really going to be hit by the brunt of the unsettled weather, you can see that here. Very unsettled weather building in, and a lot more precipitation. Generally, temperatures are around average for the time of year. But interesting to see if the sea level pressure is much different. Again, huge spread there from very deep low pressure systems to quite strong high pressure systems. Again, indicative of the huge spread in the ensemble members in the longer term over the overall pressure pattern. Again, those ones with higher pressure will be cooler, more settled, and perhaps even building a block further northwards in properly cold weather. Those with deeper low pressure systems here are more of a westerly flow, stormy, and probably milder as well. So we'll have to see. Definitely The most likely scenario is for a westerly wind, at least in the sort of mid-range, but definitely in the longer range, it doesn't look that clear-cut. Definitely something colder could be brewing, and we'll have to keep you up to date with what's going on. And of course, keeping an eye on those operational runs, as those are sort of the first line to indicate if anything is about to change. And the GFS definitely is indicating something different in the longer term, but it hasn't got a lot of support yet, so we'll have to see what happens. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you enjoy the dry weather over the next few days, and I'll see you again for another video soon.